All right, here we
The Honourable
go.
Leader of the Opposition.
Le Conseil municipal.
The Mayor and City Council of Montreal have requested legalization of hard drugs in their communities. Will the Prime Minister openly acknowledge the deadly mistake that legalizing hard drugs was in BC, or is he going to try to repeat this problem in Montreal? The Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, BC requested a pilot project and we worked with them. We agreed to amend the deal with them to better meet their needs. And we will always be there to work respectfully and with respect for science with our partners. But we weren't going to go ahead with any project without the support of the provinces involved. And the Leader of the Opposition knows that full well. But he keeps on his ideological path, like Stephen Harper, even though that was rejected as immoral and obsolete. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Oh, man.
Mr. Believe in the decriminalization of crack in children's parks, meth smoking in hospitals, or other hard drugs on public transit? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, we believe in working with British Columbia and with any province that wants us to work with them on this, which is why we accepted their request to modify their pilot project on exactly those issues. This is something we will continue to do, to work in a basis of science around compassion and a medical approach, a health approach, not a criminal justice approach to dealing with the toxic drug supply and addictions. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, we won't be taking lessons from the Conservatives that continue to chase after a Harper-era policy that their own advisors said was obsolete.
Is he good?
The Honourable Leader
They can't
of the
even speak words
Opposition.
properly.
It's an important question, Mr. Speaker, because we need to know what he's going to do next. I just gave him a chance to indicate whether he believes people should be allowed to smoke crack in children's soccer fields or meth in the faces of nurses in hospital rooms. He refused to answer, which begs the question of whether or not he will try to impose the same radical and extremist policy elsewhere. So once again, does he believe that people should be allowed to smoke meth or crack in children's soccer fields?
Good question.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, obviously no one in this House does. That is why we agreed with the British Columbia government to modify their pilot project to better suit their concerns. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, we've seen the extent to which the Leader of the Opposition will continue to try and use tragedies and ongoing challenges Canadians and vulnerable people are facing to try and score political points. It's the same reason he's said that he will suspend people's fundamental rights and freedoms to score cheap political points. That is not something that Canadians want to see, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister legalized the use of hard drugs like meth, crack, and heroin in children's parks and in hospitals, and he won't rule out doing it again. This is not an academic question. The City of Toronto submitted a 153-page application, and I quote, seeking an exemption under Section 56.1 of the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act that would decriminalize personal possession of illicit substances within Toronto's boundaries. The Prime Minister's government has been working secretly with Toronto on that plan ever since. Will he, yes or no, rule out decriminalization in Canada's biggest city?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, we see the Leader of the Opposition trying to score cheap political points on the backs of vulnerable people to promote an ideology that does not work. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to be there with a thoughtful, compassionate-based public health approach on the toxic drug supply, and that means working with jurisdictions. When Vancouver asked us for an exemption, we said no. We would only work with the province, and that's what we did to work with BC. The same thing when it comes to Ontario or Quebec. We will only work with the provinces to ensure any projects they have go.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
So he refuses to rule out repeating this disastrous experiment that killed 2,500 British Columbians. Because he strongly supports decriminalization, and if he got a chance, he would do it all over again in Toronto, in Montreal, and anywhere else. Mr. Speaker, the final question, therefore, is even the radical NDP government in BC asked for him to reverse his decriminalization. Why did it take him 10 days and 66 more deaths to do it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, we see the extent to which the Leader of the Opposition will make political attacks on the backs of the most vulnerable people in this country. We actually only received the completed request from British Columbia Friday last week and approved it the following Monday, 3 days later, Mr. Speaker. We will always respond quickly in a science-based way when people's lives are on the line. The Leader of the Opposition is continuing to spread falsehoods, Mr. Speaker, instead of actually following the facts and caring for Canadians.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have a hard time believing their own commitment to the French language. It's in their culture.
You can't have a beer, but you can smoke crack.
Is responsible for allowing his members to play such dangerous games with our national language. Will the Prime Minister at least request the member that the member step down from the Association of the Francophonie, the Right Honourable Prime Minister? Mr. Speaker, defending both of our official languages is a fundamental pillar of the Liberal Party of Canada's policy. And we were the first to recognize that the federal government also has a specific responsibility for protecting French, even within Quebec. We will always be there to defend the French language and to defend language minorities all across the country. I understand that the Bloc keeps trying to pick fights. Sometimes they manage to pick one, but we are going to continue to fight every day for official language minorities. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The Prime Minister is really unaware of the political cost of his last answer. The member who's the chair of the Francophonie Association should step down and has refused to apologize for what he said. Is, in his opinion, those defending French are extremists, and it shows extreme contempt. Will the Prime Minister call on the member in question to step down from his position? The member for Glengarry Prescott Russell should step down. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canada is a proud partner in the Francophonie, and we show that. Unlike the Bloc, we stand for protecting French all across the country. We're not just isolating Quebec. We're recognizing that the French language needs support and protection all across the country. And yes, sometimes we might get a little excited about it, but we're not trying to pick fights. We're always there to defend minority communities, and we will show leadership all across the world as a proud member of the Francophonie. The Honourable Member for New